Right now, somewhere in a home like this, there is a drawer that is not fully closed in 3 months. There is an empty shampoo bottle still sitting in the shower. There is a hoodie hanging from the same doorknob so long that the person who lives there no longer sees it. But they notice everything again the moment someone says, "I'm coming over." Suddenly the drawer matters. The bottle becomes embarrassing. The hoodie looks like evidence. And within minutes, the person is moving through the room with a strange mixture of panic, shame, and exhaustion, wondering how they allowed things to become this way. Most people reach for the easiest explanation: laziness, a lack of discipline. Maybe they simply do not care. But the person living inside the mess usually knows that none of those explanations feels completely true. They do care. They have thought about cleaning it many times. They have stood in the doorway, looked at everything that needed to be done, and promised themselves, tomorrow. Sometimes tomorrow comes. The room gets cleaned. For a few days, everything feels lighter. Then the small unfinished things begin returning. One cup beside the bed. One piece of clothing on the chair. One box placed on the floor just for now. Until one day the room feels heavy again. So the real question is not, why are some people so lazy? The real question is, how can someone care deeply about their space and still feel unable to change it? Because a room is not a verdict. It is not proof that someone has failed at adulthood. And it is not a reliable measurement of how much they care about themselves. A room is information. It can reveal what a person notices, what they avoid, what overwhelms them, what they are emotionally attached to, and what their mind no longer has the energy to finish. In that sense, a room is a language. And many people have spent years blaming themselves for a language they were never taught to understand. To see why this happens, begin with something your brain does every day without asking your permission. It filters. At first, a drawer that will not close creates a small moment of friction. Your eyes notice it. Your body registers a tiny pull to fix it. But you are tired, distracted, late, or already thinking about something else. So you leave it. The next day, the signal returns. And you leave it again. After enough repetitions, the object does not disappear. Your brain simply decides that it is no longer urgent enough to deserve conscious attention. Psychologists call this habituation. It is the brain's ability to reduce its response to something that remains present for a long time. It is why you can stop hearing the hum of a refrigerator. It is why people living near a busy road eventually sleep through traffic. And it is why an object can remain out of place for weeks until a visitor walks into the room and makes you see it again. The mess did not suddenly appear. Your attention returned to it. But habituation is only the first layer, because some people stop consciously noticing the mess while still feeling its effects. They walk into the room and feel irritated, restless, mentally crowded. They cannot explain why it is harder to focus there. Every object is quiet, but together they create a low background demand. Put me away. Wash me. Decide what to do with me. Finish me. A room full of unfinished decisions can become a room full of unfinished thoughts. And this is where cleaning stops being a simple physical task, because every object may require a decision. Where does this belong? Should I keep it? Do I need it? Can I throw it away? What if I need it later? What if it reminds me of someone? What if I begin cleaning and discover that the entire room is worse than I thought? For a mind that is already overwhelmed, these are not small questions. They are hundreds of tiny points of friction waiting inside one ordinary room. So the person does what overwhelmed minds often do. They avoid starting. Not because they have made a calm decision to live in disorder, because starting means becoming aware of every unfinished decision at once. This is why advice like just clean for 10 minutes sometimes works and sometimes feels almost insulting. The problem may not be the 10 minutes. The problem may be what the 10 minutes forces the person to feel. The scale of the task. The shame of waiting so long. The fear that they will begin and still fail to finish. The memory of every previous attempt that lasted 3 days before the room slowly returned to its old shape. After enough cycles, the person no longer sees cleaning as one task. They see it as a test of whether they are finally capable of becoming a different kind of person. That is far too much meaning for a pile of laundry to carry. And there is another reason some rooms remain unchanged. Not everything inside them is merely clutter. Some objects are emotional evidence. A shirt from a version of yourself you no longer recognize. A box from a relationship that ended without a clean goodbye. A gift from someone you miss. A stack of papers from a period of life you still have not fully processed. Throwing these things away does not always feel like removing objects. Sometimes it feels like deleting proof that a part of your life happened. So the object stays, not because it is useful, because deciding what it means feels harder than moving around it. Other people struggle for a different reason. They can see the mess, they know what needs to happen, but their brain has difficulty turning intention into action. Cleaning requires more mental steps than it appears to. You must notice the task, choose where to begin, ignore competing distractions, organize the steps, estimate time, shift between categories, make decisions, tolerate boredom, and stop yourself from abandoning the room halfway through because you found an old photograph, remembered an unanswered message, or decided that reorganizing one drawer now requires redesigning the entire house. This set of abilities is often called executive functioning. When it is strained by stress, sleep deprivation, depression, anxiety, ADHD, burnout, grief, or simple mental overload, even ordinary tasks can begin to feel strangely inaccessible. The person may know exactly what to do. Knowledge is not the problem. The bridge between knowing and beginning is. That is why two people can look at the same pile of clothes and experience entirely different tasks. One person sees, put the clothes in the basket. Another person sees, sort them. Check the pockets. Find the missing basket. Start the laundry. Remember to move it. Fold everything. Decide where it belongs. Deal with the clothes that no longer fit. Face the fact that the closet is already full. What appears to be one task from the outside may feel like 20 unresolved tasks from the inside. And then shame enters. Shame rarely makes cleaning easier. It makes the room more emotionally dangerous. The more ashamed someone feels, the more likely they are to avoid looking closely. The more they avoid looking, the more the room deteriorates. The more it deteriorates, the more ashamed they become. Soon the person is not only avoiding the mess, they are avoiding what the mess seems to say about them. Lazy, immature, broken, disgusting. A disappointment. But the room never said those things. People did. Or perhaps the person learned to say them to themselves. This is why harsh motivation often fails. You cannot reliably shame a nervous system into feeling safe enough to begin. You can frighten someone into cleaning before a visitor arrives. You can humiliate them into throwing everything into bags. But fear creates emergency cleaning, not a sustainable relationship with the space. The room becomes temporarily clean. The underlying pattern remains untouched. So what actually helps? First, stop treating the entire room as one task. A room is not a task. It is a collection of separate decisions. Instead of saying, I need to clean my room, choose one category that has a clear ending. Remove the rubbish. Collect the cups. Put dirty clothes into one place. Clear one chair. Not because these actions will transform the whole room, because your brain needs evidence that a task can begin and end without consuming you. Second, reduce decisions wherever possible. If clothing repeatedly lands on one chair, the problem may not be laziness. The laundry basket may simply be too far away from the place where you naturally change clothes. If your charger always crosses the floor, perhaps the outlet is on the wrong side of the room. If unopened mail forms a pile near the door, perhaps that is where a small tray needs to exist. A useful system does not demand that you become a perfectly disciplined person. It works with the person who already lives there. The goal is not to create a room that looks good for one photograph. It is to create a room that is easy to return to. Third, separate emotional objects from ordinary clutter. Do not force yourself to decide the meaning of your entire past while trying to clear a desk. Place emotionally difficult items into one temporary container. Not a box called Keep Forever. Not a box called Throw Away. A box called Decide Later. This is not avoidance when it is intentional. It is a way of preventing one emotionally loaded object from stopping the entire process. Fourth, remove the moral language. Do not say, I am disgusting. Say, there are dishes in the room. Do not say, I always ruin everything. Say, my current system is not working. Do not say, I should be able to do this. Say, what would make the next step easier? This may sound small, but it changes the task. One statement attacks your identity. The other identifies a problem that can be adjusted. And finally, begin with the object that has become invisible. Not the most embarrassing object. Not the biggest pile. The one object that has been out of place for so long that it has become part of the room. The empty bottle. The cup. The hoodie. The box beside the door. Pick it up. Finish only that decision. Then stop for a moment and notice what happened. The room did not become perfect. You did not become a new person. but something unfinished became finished. That matters, because the opposite of overwhelm is not perfection. It is completion. One closed loop gives the mind slightly more space, then another, then another. Eventually, the room begins to feel different, not because every object has disappeared, because the objects that remain have somewhere to belong. And perhaps that is what the room has been trying to say all along. Not, you are lazy, not, you do not care, but the way you are living requires more energy than you currently have. This system was not built for the way you naturally move. Some of these objects are carrying feelings you have not named. There are too many unfinished decisions in one place. A room can reveal all of that, but it cannot deliver a diagnosis. It cannot tell you your worth, and it cannot decide what kind of person you are. It can only show you where friction has been accumulating. So look around the place where you are sitting now. Do not judge the whole room. Find one object that has been out of place for so long that you barely notice it anymore. What is it? A cup, a piece of clothing, a box, an empty bottle, a stack of papers. Write it in the comments. Not because strangers need to inspect your room, because naming an invisible thing makes it visible again. And once something becomes visible, it becomes possible to finish. If this video made you feel understood rather than judged, leave a like. Not as a reward for having a clean room, as a reminder that struggling with your space does not make you a failure. Your room was never a verdict. It was information. And now perhaps you are beginning to understand what it has been trying to say.